Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Lovely to see old friends and new friends here in the Zoom room, and a welcome to those of you who are practicing with us uh, through the YouTube channel. We know that there's some regulars and some new folks that pop in there, so we appreciate you practicing with us when you're able to. Um, I'm just thinking about how to begin with this topic. So this is a practice I've been doing this week. I've done it before, I think two other times. Once, the first time was years ago, um, and I highly recommend it. So a long time ago, I should have pulled up the website, but they're not selling the bracelets anymore. It's called No Complaining, maybe .org or something. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. And when it first, oh yeah, No Complaining bracelet. It was a 21-day complaint-free challenge. Um, I found it here. So I'll put the link down below in the YouTube recording, as well as other things, and I'll also pop it here in our Zoom room. And when I first did this many moons ago, it was like 21 days of trying to be free of complaining mind is the practice. And they had these yellow rubber bracelets that said no complaining. And I bought them for my students and we all did it together. And so every time you notice yourself complaining, internally, externally, you would switch it over to the other wrist and start your 21 days again. No, I'd never made it. That's right. But this time, none of us did, of course, and that's really not the point, anyways. It's to bring awareness to mind states. And so this time we just used these like hair ties from the dollar store, but you could use any bracelet. This works for me because it's like a little bit uncomfortable. Like you can feel it on there. It's a little bit snug. And so you might find something, not uncomfortable, of course, but something where you notice that it's there. And then when you notice complaining, of course, it's up to you how you want to practice with that. Maybe some people that like live with others in a house and there's a lot of talking, they might just work with verbal complaining. If you live alone or practice a lot in silence, it's really helpful to include the mental complaining, which is quite prolific for most folks. And it depends what you include in complaining. Like judgmental mind is a form of complaining. Self self reproach is a form of complaining. To some, you can kind of decide how you want to work with it. Complaining about the weather, complaining about like last week when we started this, and I left the our class where it was, and didn't even make it home. And I had to message someone and say I didn't even make it around the block before I noticed complaining about somebody's driving or something. I don't even know what it was. Um, and I remember the first True North Insight retreat that I sat with Molly Swan and Norman Feldman moons ago. And it was a painful and fruitful retreat because I was just so shocked and dismayed at um, how judgmental the mind habit was, like judging everything and everyone of how things should be or shouldn't be, or how other people should be walking or eating or breathing. Oh my gosh. And I was just so shocked because I hadn't stopped long enough without these practices to notice the mind states and the proliferation of these the quality of thoughts or the content of my thoughts in a close way. It was quite a shock. And of course, I've found since then that I am not alone in that. It's a pretty common experience, especially when people first start or come to a meditation retreat. There's often several folks that are quite like, whoa, I had no idea. It's so trashy in here. It's quite shocking and fantastically motivating insight to pay attention to mindfulness of mind states. So, in the book group at meditation class that we have Wednesday mornings in person here, we've been doing this book, Full Simplicity by Kim Allen. It's a book about renunciation on the path, and it's called The Art of Renunciation and Letting Go. Excellent book. Um, and renunciation is such an important part of the entire path of freedom. Um, and there's a case study, a chapter here that where she's talking about renunciation of our mental patterns, the habits of mind, and seeing them with wisdom and practicing renunciation of these harmful mind states. And there's a section on complaining. Um, one of her Kim Allen's students, because she's been teaching renunciation for some time. I'll put the link to her book as well below. Um, said, I chose not to stop complaining because it felt too good in the moment, but afterward it did not feel good at all. So this part about it felt too good in the moment is like scratching an itch. It's like, well, I won't say that. I'll just say scratching an itch. It feels good at the time, but if you have a bad rash and you scratch it, it's going to feel worse after that immediate gratification. And especially when we're with others, there can be kind of a way of bonding around complaining, where we have somebody starts a complaint and others join in, and then you feel a sense of community around our shared complaints. It, so that's another way it can feel good. Um, and that even internal complaints are not inconsequential because we know that intention precedes thought, and thought precedes speech and actions. So, what we're thinking has a consequence and also feels like painful internally. Like I was talking about with my first retreat, it's a silent retreat. I wasn't like trashing on people, but it was so painful to just be like, whoa, what a mess. This is so nasty. When that was known, it was like very disturbing and painful to pay attention to. Um, yeah, okay. Um, Somebody else says here in Kim Allen's book, I am almost constantly complaining internally in some form or another about other drivers, my body's needs, or the views of the person I'm speaking with. Some are very subtle complaints. Love this. cleverly disguised as facts. Whoa, that's a good one. Oh, some are very subtle complaints cleverly disguised as a statement of facts. Ah, um, yeah. And mm, in terms of the five hindrances, which you may be familiar with, the five hindrances that we all experience when we're practicing mindfulness, and the Buddha also experienced these. Complaining is related to the hindrance of ill will. Since I've said the five hindrances, I should mention the others. So, desire and ill will are two of them. Sloth and torpor is another one, like dull mind, dull energy. Restlessness and remorse, so worrying mind and ruminating mind. And the fifth one is called doubt. So the hindrance of ill will is related to complaining mind. And the Buddha, will I say this now? Um, okay, so I mentioned that when I did this the first time years ago, I didn't get anywhere near 21 days without any thoughts of not liking, complaining, da da da. Um, this time, I actually, I totally admit I could be completely deluded. I'm aware of that, and I'm open to hearing that if this is just delusion. But I've been pretty noticing and switching my bracelet to the other wrist every time I'm aware of these thoughts, usually in hindsight, where I look back and go, "Oh yeah, I was complaining." Um, but I did go a whole day without complaining. That was pretty remarkable. I was quite surprised, and I'm like, "Am I deluded?" I think I did because the previous days I've been switching it back and forth as I noticed, and so it was helpful to notice there has been some improvement. That was helpful to know. And it can be helpful in our practice to reflect on something that you've practiced a long time ago, and then you do it again and you see, hey, there's something to this breath. It works. True story. The Buddha did this kind of a practice. There's a sutta that I've shared down below and in the chat here called the Deva Vitaka Sutta. It's in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 19. Is called Two Sorts of Thinking. And the Buddha is relating this teaching to the students that are there at the time. And he's talking about before he was an enlightened, a Buddha, Buddha meaning awakened one. Um, when he says, I was still just an unenlightened bodhisattva. So someone on the path and practicing this path of awakening, the thought occurred to him, why don't I keep dividing my thinking into two sorts? So I made thinking imbued with or saturated with sensuality or desire and ill will or harmfulness. And I'll put these on kind of one side in my mind. I'll note them as being unskillful, unwholesome, not onward leading, causing suffering. And thoughts that are the opposite of these, which are renunciation and non harm and non ill will on the other side. So you might recognize that these are the aspects of wise intention on the Eightfold Path. Um, and so he says as he's separating his thoughts, meaning like mindfully noting what kind of thought that was and going, but that goes here, that goes here. he says, and I remained thus, heedful, ardent, and resolute. These three words are repeated, I couldn't count how many times through the suttas, and they point to the strong energy and intention that is needed to work with wise effort on this path. That it does require heedfulness, like that's a lot, strong mindfulness, ardent and resolute. There's a strong energy of like, I'm going to do this. And these are often overlooked and important. So he's saying, I remained thus heedful, ardent, and resolute. And when thinking of either sensuality, ill will, or harmfulness arose in me, he says, I noticed that it leads to my own affliction. Like, check it out for yourself. Do thoughts of complaining lead to your own affliction? It's coming from a place of ill will. I don't like this. It shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be this way. They certainly shouldn't be that way. Um, and it's kind of like hatred is described as picking up a hot coal to throw at someone else, is burning yourself. So he's noticing that it leads to my own affliction. And then he says, or to the affliction of others. That's usually how it goes. Is like, let me make sure you get a piece of this suffering. And so, that's where complaining comes about, and we're verbalizing or venting or all this kind of stuff, right? The affliction of others, or if it's a thoughts of desire or harm that we're acting out in our speech and our actions, causing harm. And then he goes on, or the affliction of both. And this is actually most often internally and externally harm. And he goes on, it obstructs discernment. So these kind of thinking that he would put on one side, he could see it gets in the way of clearly seeing. It gets in the way of insight, of wise discernment about what's really going on and what's needed and what response is needed here. It obstructs discernment. It promotes vexation. Some old words are most excellent. Vexation. Vexation. So vexed. Ruminating, and it has a quality of ill will to it. And it does not lead to unbinding, nibbana. It does not lead to freedom. Uh, and then he noticed the other thoughts that are free of these qualities, but are actually thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of, which means all the forms of letting go, thoughts of non-harm, and thoughts of non-ill will, which these are metta and karuna. Non-harm or non-ill will is loving kindness meditation. Metta, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be well, may you be peaceful. And non-harmfulness is karuna meditation, when we understand the suffering and the harm caused, and wish for may you be free of this suffering. May this suffering ease. So encouragement to at some point try on this practice. Find yourself, it's helpful for me to have a physical reminder that you actually see, feel, and move. Instead of just saying, this week I'm going to try and notice complaining, because the habits of mind are deep in ancient grooves, conditions, sankharas, that uh, it takes reminders, it takes strong intention to pay attention. Having this kind of physical reminder is really brings the practice alive. Um, yeah. And then, as is the way sometimes, which still amazes me, often when I'm thinking on a theme, it seems like this amazing poet, Rosemary Watola Tromer, it, there's something in my inbox. If you register, I'll put the link to her site that you can receive a daily poem. She writes a poem every day. Amazing. For many, many years now. And you can subscribe to receive these daily poems, which many of us do. And this one showed up this week as we were working with this awareness of complaining. And I'm just thinking, I just want to add this note. Somebody said in a class this morning, and it was so helpful and wise when we were sharing our reflections. It's great if you could find a friend to do this with, because then you could talk about it and check in with each other, and keep the practice really active and juicy. That's a helpful way to do it. Um, I just want to find this note quickly. Sorry. Full simplicity. And yeah, this wise student and fellow teacher uh, said this morning, am I willing to act on this? So when we're working with complaining habit of mind, you might ask yourself, is this something I'm willing to act on? Is there some wise speech or wise action that would be onward leading, helpful? And am I willing to do that? Because if I'm not, that can give you a little clue, like, it's just complaining. Perhaps there's a whole bunch of different flavors of thought that come into it, but I thought that was a really helpful point. Am I willing to act on this? And because sometimes just asking yourself that helps to free it a little bit, liberate it, loosen it. Um, yeah, there's so much to be shared about this practice. It's really, really juicy. So here's this poem from Rosemary Watola Tromer called The Mindfulness Bell. Fairly often, her poems are inspired by other pieces and she cites them. So a piece of art or someone else's writing or someone else's poem, which kind of sparks her own creativity. So this one is sparked by something that David Keplinger wrote in Another Shore. I don't know if it's a poem or a book. He said, you might consider your own minor annoyances and turn them into a bell. Let it be a bell to remind you to come back. And remember, soon all of this will be gone. So many of the things we're complaining about are, well, all things are impermanent, but like are ephemeral anyways. And our lives are fleeting. And how do we want to use them? So that quote inspired her to write this poem, The Mindfulness Bell by Rosemary Watola Tromer. And so today, when the very slow driver in front of me starts going 10 miles over the speed limit, right when we get to the passing lane, I imagine my frustration is a bell. Instead of calling him an idiot as usual, instead I think, ding! Can you be grateful to be alive right now? Ding! Can you bless this body? Delight in this canyon? Find joy in the burgeoning green of spring? Ding, ding, ding. Can you come home to this moment and realize all belongs? Even slow drivers who speed up, even your impatience. Ding. Here's your chance to imagine whatever provokes you becomes a mindfulness bell. There will come a time when you think, oh, what a lucky woman you were to drive these roads at all. Could that time be now? Ding, ding. Oh, that idiot. Ding. Please let him pull over. Don't honk, please. Ding, ding, ding. Perfect, perfect teaching. To not add complaining about our complaining internally, like, oh, I shouldn't be complaining. Oh, I'm complaining again. But to use it as a mindfulness bell, to just notice, whoa, that's quite a deep habit. That's happening more than I realized. Perhaps, maybe it isn't for you. Um, to just use it as a ding, a mindfulness bell. In those moments of switching the bracelet over, if you use something like that, or um, those moments of naming, noting this habit of mind, there's that little pause where we could choose. It's we've noticed that mind state, and we could choose. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. Sometimes we do. Or we could choose, like, wow, that's causing my own vexation, disturbance, and probably others, if usually. Um, and seeing the harmfulness of it, the disturbance, the dukkha of it, um, and beginning again. One of the really most important ways of beginning again is the first foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of body. So we might ask ourselves simply, where am I? Because when we're in complaining mind, we're often like elsewhere. We're having a conversation with someone in our mind, or we're thinking about a future outcome or something that's already happened that we're going over, some past thing. Um, and so just that moment of knowing is the little pause, and then asking, where am I? Oh, I'm actually in the middle of eating a meal. Didn't even taste it. Um, I sometimes think about this like a ruminating, when we have ruminating mind, it's like a cow eating its ruminant, its cud. And um, I'm actually eating those thoughts. I'm not even paying attention to the food. It's just like chewing away on whatever thought storm is happening. So where am I? Oh, I'm actually in the middle of this path. I'm actually with these people. I'm actually here feeling this ground. Mindfulness of body is the first foundation of how to begin again skillfully. Much to say, so much about this topic. And one person in the class this morning was sharing how another time years ago we'd been practicing with mind states, and it was probably mindfulness of body, and they used post-it notes around their home, in the car, on the phone, that just said, where am I? So that randomly they would see these reminders. Where am I? Ah, right here. Body is always right here in the present moment. Mind, not so much. Definitely not so much. So you might put some post-it notes around. Where am I? Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So that's some thoughts on this habit of mind. And now we will practice, of course. So adjusting your space and your posture. Mhm. Okay, one sec. Mm. All right, so starting to set aside your distractions, finding a posture that feels supportive and upright. Resting your eyes either closed or downward, slightly open, or the eyes just resting calmly on something easeful and still in your space. And then we begin to really drape the awareness around, over, and through this body. You might start at the top of the head, over the face, the back of the skull, and just feeling any areas of tension, contraction. Inviting some caring attention or ease to this, any tension that is felt. Sweeping awareness across the shoulders, down the neck. Noticing any ease that might come with this caring awareness. Inviting these muscles to relax as the shoulders drop. I find it helpful to take 2 or 3 slightly deeper breaths so that I can remember the feeling of movement in the chest, the ribs, the belly. Especially then I might notice, oh, there has been a lot of tension or mm, rigidity as I feel that movement. So that as the breath settles down and relaxes, we might still feel some ease or movement through the chest, ribs, belly. These areas that we sometimes call the heart center and the belly center can be very activated if there's been a lot of complaining mind states that are active. So we could invite some caring attention and softness to the deep inner layers of the heart center and the belly center. As this whole upper body begins and continues relaxing, we could feel more weightedness, heaviness through the bones of the pelvis, the legs, feet. Feeling the direct experience in this moment of the body in relationship with the ground. And we cultivate this wise foundation of mindfulness of body by just knowing, where am I? Oh, right here. Feeling these different temperatures, pressure, dampness, dryness, movement, vibrations, pulse, endless amount of sensations. So tonight we're just using the general field of awareness, mindfulness of body as our anchor. You don't have to feel anything in particular or everything all at once. It's just as if there's a field of awake awareness around the body, as there is, and just resting in that knowing, body is here. Where am I? Right here. Really simple. if it feels activating to rest with mindfulness of body, you could just choose one area of the body, perhaps the hands or somewhere neutral, perhaps the soles of the feet, some part of the body that doesn't feel activating or charged, and just let that be your mindfulness of body anchor. And then, as the Buddha practiced, heedful, ardent, and resolute, there's quite a bit of energy and strong intention to bring wakefulness, brightness, strong intention, to just keep beginning again. When awareness floats away into wanting or not wanting or planning or fantasizing, etc., at some point awareness notices and we gently begin again. But we do this quite diligently, understanding this practice of mindfulness of mind states. And as we continue developing some stability and some mindfulness with mindfulness of body, beginning again over and over, then we might start to include some mindfulness of mind. So, in those moments of pause before we begin again, you might just see if you can catch the flavor. Where was the mind? Was there some complaining? We might practice the way the Buddha did, putting thoughts on one side that are thoughts of desire or ill will or harm, or thoughts of care, compassion, letting go are on another side. Just starting to note, to name the habits of mind, just briefly, and then begin again, mindfulness of body. Where am I? And then we'll close the practice with the type of thinking that the Buddha said was onward leading, was skillful, was the kind that led to his own inner peace, the peace of others, and of both these practices of loving kindness and compassion and renunciation. So as you stay aware of mindfulness of body, feeling that field of awareness, cultivate this caring awareness. May I be happy. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be well in body and mind. May I be peaceful. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be peaceful. And then invite into awareness someone that may be impacted by the habit of complaining mind that might show up in a heedless way, in a reactive, non-mindful way. So perhaps someone that you work with, someone that you live with, someone that you chat with, that may be impacted by complaining. And then include this wise and onward leading practice with them in your awareness. May you be happy. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be well in body and mind. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be peaceful. And understanding our interconnected web of life, that we are not separate and isolated entities. We can easily see the connection with all beings everywhere. This ripple effect, this cause and effect. May all beings know sukha, happiness. May all beings be safe. May all beings have the causes and conditions for wellness. And may all beings everywhere be free of dukkha. Thank you for practicing with us on this YouTube channel. Please check the links below for the poem, the sutta, the book, and all the other bits that I might have mentioned. And I hope you find it a fruitful practice to watch this state of mind and to practice freedom. Thank you.